In this video, I'm going to show you how to do boot macOS and Ubuntu on your Mac in a few minutes. This step-by-step installation guide will help you to run Ubuntu natively on older Intel-based Macs. Now keep in mind, this guide is only for Intel Macs. If your Mac is powered by Apple Silicon, check out the video link in the description for more information. Now with that said, let's get started. Before installing Ubuntu 24.04 alongside macOS on your Intel Mac, it's important to understand a few things. Ubuntu is an open source operating system that can run on most Intel-based Macs. However, it's not officially supported by Apple. This means you may encounter issues with drivers, such as problems with battery drain, speakers, and Bluetooth. While there are some workarounds available, it's important to be aware of these potential issues before you begin the installation process. Additionally, this guide is intended for Macs that do not have a T2 chip. However, if your Mac does have a T2 chip, you will need to take an additional step before installing Ubuntu 24.04 LTS. Now, specifically, you will need to disable a feature that prevents the Ubuntu Installer from booting from external media. To enable external booting on a Mac with a T2 chip, restart your Mac and hold the Command+R keys to boot into recovery mode. Now from the menu bar, choose Utilities, then select Startup Security Utility. Now select the option to allow booting from external USB. Now for this demonstration, I will be using my MacBook Pro 2017, which does not have a T2 security chip and allows me to boot from external media without any additional steps. Now let's get into installing Ubuntu 24.04 LTS on a Mac. Now first things first, you need to reserve a free space of at least 30 GB on your Mac to function properly. To create a free space, open Spotlight by pressing Command plus Spacebar, then type Disk Utility and open it. Now from the menu bar, choose Show All Devices and select the main drive, which is Apple SSD. Then click on Partition and click on the plus button to add a partition. Now allocate the desired amount of free space for Ubuntu using the slider. Now for this tutorial, I'm going to use 80 GB. You can name the partition as Linux or any desired name. And select MS-DOS FAT as the file system. Your Mac may freeze for a while during this process, but don't interrupt until it completes. Now once successful, open Finder Settings and enable this option to see mounted drives on the desktop. The partition we just created should now be visible. Next, we need to download the Ubuntu ISO. Open Safari and go to the Ubuntu website, then click on the download button. The latest version at the time of this recording is 24.04 LTS. I recommend using the LTS release, which is supported for 5 years. However, if you want the latest features of GNOME Desktop, you can choose non-LTS release. The installation process will be similar for any version of Ubuntu. While the ISO is downloading, go to the Berliner Etcher website and download it on your Mac. Now once both files are downloaded, double-click the DMG file and drag the icon into the Applications folder. Now eject the DMG file from the desktop, then open Finder, go to Applications and open Berliner Etcher. Now connect your USB drive with at least 8 GB of free space and use Balena Etcher to create a bootable USB installer with Ubuntu ISO. This process may take a few minutes depending on the writing speed of your drive. Now once the bootable USB is ready, connect your power adapter and restart your Mac. Whilst restarting, hold the Option key until you enter the boot menu. You will see the bootable USB drive labeled as EFI boot in orange. Now highlight this drive using the arrow keys and press enter to boot the Ubuntu installer. Now this will bring up the grub menu. Choose the first option to try or install Ubuntu. However, on some Macs, the system may not be able to load the Ubuntu installer or may get stuck in a boot loop. If this happens, forcefully reboot your Mac by holding the Option key to re-enter the grub menu and select the Save Graphics option to boot into the Ubuntu installer without loading any GPU drivers. This option can only be used if the first one doesn't work for you. Anyway, I'm going to use the first option. Once you're inside the live setup of Ubuntu, you may notice that the trackpad or keyboard doesn't work properly. Now, if this happens for you, you can connect a wireless mouse and keyboard to continue the installation. In my case, the trackpad and keyboard are working fine. Then connect to the internet using Wi-Fi. Set the system language and click on Next. Then skip the accessibility settings to avoid the potential crashes. Then select a keyboard layout and click on Next. Now ensure your system is connected to Wi-Fi and click on Next. You can try Ubuntu before installing, but for now, we will choose to install Ubuntu. Now click on it and choose Next. Then select Interactive Installation. Now on the Applications page, you can choose the default selection for Essential Apps or the extended selection that includes more apps and useful tools. I'm going to use the extended selection, then click on Next. Now tick both options to optimize your computer by installing recommended drivers and then click on Next. Now on the disk page, you can choose to erase macOS and replace with Ubuntu. You can use the first option. Let me know if you want to see in-depth video on removing macOS and installing Ubuntu. Since we are dual booting, choose Manual Installation and click on Next. This will take you to the partition page where you can see all of the internal and external drives. Now be very careful at this point. Now look for the macOS drive. In my case, it's NVMe 0 and 1. In your case, it may be SDA or NVMe. This drive contains 3 partitions. Now select the partition we created earlier with 80 GB of free space and click on minus to make it unallocated. Now let's create a partition for Ubuntu. Select the free space, click on plus, and use the entire free space to create a root partition. The file system will be ext4 and set the mount point as /. We now have created the root partition. If you notice, the first boot EFI partition, NVMe 0 and 1 P1, is related to macOS. The installer will auto-select this partition to install the grub boot manager. Now once it's done, click on Next, then create user account. Select your time zone and click on Next. Now, this is the summary of the installation. If you want, you can freely go back and make any changes. But for now, I'm good. Click on this button to start the Ubuntu installation. This process will take a few minutes, so sit back, relax, and grab some drinks. Now, once the installation is complete, click on Restart and remove the USB drive. Your Mac should boot into Ubuntu automatically. Now keep in mind that after setting up to boot on your Mac, the startup disk is set to Ubuntu. And voila! Now you can see we have successfully installed Ubuntu on Mac. Now go ahead and enter your password to log in. When it comes to performance, Ubuntu on Intel Mac is very impressive. If your Mac is older and cannot handle macOS anymore, switching to Ubuntu can give you a solid performance boost. Most of the applications work fine without any issues. The only problem I have encountered was with the speakers, microphone, and Bluetooth. I have been using USB-C earpods to watch videos and listen to music. If you face any issues, you can find solutions by searching on Google or the Ubuntu forums. In case you're experiencing battery drain or overheating issues, you can install Auto CPU Freak to fix this issue. I have made a separate video on this topic, so check the video link in the description. Now to switch back to macOS, choose Restart on Ubuntu, then press and hold the Option key until you see the boot menu. Here, you can select either macOS or Ubuntu. You can choose Macintosh to boot into macOS or EFI to boot into Ubuntu. This is a perfect dual boot setup on Intel Mac with Ubuntu 24.04 and macOS. As a bonus part of this video, if you decide to remove Ubuntu and use macOS exclusively, first boot back into macOS and open the terminal. Then type distkutil space list to view the internal drive. It contains 3 partitions: EFI, APFS, and Linux file system. Now, partition 3 is the Ubuntu root partition. Note down its identifier. We have to delete this one and merge the free space back to macOS. To do so, open Spotlight and search for disk utility. Select Apple SSD from the sidebar and click on the partition. Now select the Linux partition, which in my case is disk 0S3, and click on minus. Then click on Apply and then merge the free space back to the macOS. And that's it, we're done deleting the Ubuntu root partition. It's time to delete the grub boot manager from the macOS EFI partition. Now go back to the terminal and type distkutil space list to list out the partitions. Now note down the identifier of the EFI partition, which is disk 0S1, and type this command to mount the EFI partition. Once it's mounted, go to the desktop, open Finder Settings and enable Hard Disk to show mounted partitions on the desktop. Then open the EFI directory, find the Ubuntu boot files and move them to the trash. And lastly, open Startup Disk, set macOS as the startup disk and reboot. Now your Mac will boot into macOS automatically without any issues. And that's it. This is how you properly set up a dual boot with Ubuntu 24.04 LTS and macOS on your Intel Mac. Let me know what do you think about it in the comment section down below. If you have any questions or queries, do post them. I will try to help you. Thanks for watching. This has been KSKRIO. I will see you in the next one.